Hi everyone, welcome back, and we are going to be starting week 7. So we're almost there. We just have 2 more weeks left and then we are done with the semester. Um, Going into week 7, I did just want to upfront let you know that I did make an update to the syllabus. So I actually have the screen here on the syllabus. If you look under week 7, there was a 5th activity that was originally scheduled for week 7, but I actually removed that activity because as I was finalizing how the final paper was going to go, I basically decided that one of the assignments wasn't really necessary. So what I ended up doing is the point scale is not going to change, but your pre-writing activity that you're going to be doing this week, it's actually going to be worth 20 points instead of 10. And then I removed that other assignment. Mainly because I feel like the pre-writing assignment it should be worth more than what it was originally scheduled to be worth. And so when I removed that assignment, I just basically upped the points for the pre-writing assignment. So that's all that's changed there. And then the only thing that I changed to week 8, originally when they set up this new format for the class, they were saying that, students needed to do a final paper and a presentation. However, since this is an 8 weeks class and we're kind of piloting this class for the summertime, I actually removed where it said a presentation. So you're only going to be doing a final paper for finals week. That's what your final is you're going to be doing a final paper. And there's not going to be a presentation aspect to it because you already did a presentation with your groups earlier in the semester. So I did remove where it said final paper and presentation. So now it just says final paper is what you are going to be turning in during finals week. And that is basically all that I changed. So I just wanted you to be aware of that before we kind of got started on what we're going to be doing this week. So I'm going to go back to our homepage and just scroll down to the week 7 folder so you can see basically what we're going to be doing. Let's get down here. Okay, so for week 7, we're kind of basically coming to an end with everything, and we're putting everything together basically is what we're doing. All of the other concepts, topics, things that we've been discussing throughout the semester, we're kind of rounding it all out to where we're getting ready to write your final reflective paper where you're going to reflect on your career path. You're going to reflect on some of the things in the class that potentially was valuable to you that you can use in order to write your paper and kind of put all of this information together. And it's all going to be concerning basically your career path, whether you've already chosen your career path or whether you've potentially found something interesting to you that you're maybe going to look into as a potential career path. And so that's how we're kind of going at how you're going to be working on your paper. And this week in week 7, you're basically building some information together. So that way, hopefully it's a little bit easier for you to be able to put your paper together next week when you do your final. So basically, just to start out the week, we're kind of ending things, where do I want to go? And you'll do your reading here on where do I want to go? And then you're going to do an activity called the elements of your life story. One thing I do want to point out for this week is please go in order because you need to complete these activities in order before you get to your pre-writing assignment. Because part of the pre-writing assignment is asking you to use information from how you've answered these two assignments beforehand in order to do part of your pre-writing assignment. So if you try to skip ahead and do your pre-writing assignment, you're going to find that it's actually asking you to take some of this information from these two activities in order to help answer some of the questions that you're going to be doing. So please do everything in order, do the reading, do the activities in order. You'll have a second reading here of what am I looking for. And then what we're going to be doing is an activity called the Super Strong Assessment. It's really similar to what you did last week when you did the student success profile. It's going to be run through the same platform. So when you click on this activity, you're going to see when it pulls up that you're going to have a link here. And when you click on this link, it's going to take you to that Vita Navis website. And you're going to use the same exact login that you used when you did the student success profile. It's going to be exactly the same. And it should let you in there. And then it's actually a pretty short assessment. It's not going to take nearly as long as the student success profile did. So complete that assessment. And it's kind of the same concept. You want to try to answer all of the questions. But this assessment is a little bit more specific to the way that you answer the questions. It's going to gear you more specifically towards actual career interests. And it's really valuable for people that maybe haven't quite decided yet what they're going to do for their career path. But even if you have already chosen, it's kind of cool because it does show you some other areas where based off of how you answer the questions where you may have some other interests, and it might give you some potential of, it's always good not only to have even a backup plan, but it's always good to kind of see where you have some other strengths, interests, and things like that, because you never know. Life is weird. It takes us in different directions. I originally went to school to become a psychologist, and now I'm a teacher, and that's okay, because honestly, when I was in high school, I originally wanted to be a teacher, but then when I got to college, I changed my mind a few times about what my major was going to be. And then I finally majored in psychology, and I kind of was going along that path like I was going to go into psychology. And then I switched and geared myself back towards education whenever I started working on my master's degree and my postgraduate degree. So life is weird. It takes us in different directions. Things happen and you kind of change plans. So this assessment is kind of cool because it gives you some different ways to look at different interests and things based off of how you answer it. So it is kind of cool. So what you're going to do after you finish the assessment, it'll give you a basically a page at the end that's going to show you what your results are. And so when you get your results from the assessment, you're basically, how you're completing this assignment is you're going to be answering these questions based off of how your results turn out from your assessment. So make sure that you read through the results and try to get an understanding for what it's telling you after you've answered all the questions and you get your results, and then come back and basically you'll just want to, you can either copy this right here and then just paste it if you do the text entry box, or you can just, do the numbers and answer it, but it may be easier just to copy and paste it. And then you just have to basically fill in the answers as you're going along. So you're just going to do the text entry box, answer these questions based off of the results that you get from the test. So make sure you're using directly those results that you have. And then you'll just basically submit your assignment from there. And then let's go back to the week 7 folder so we can go over mainly the big activity that you're going to be doing for this week is your pre-writing activity. So what you're going to see here, after you complete the Super Strong assessment, you're going to see that there is a link here for instructions on the final paper. Please be aware, this is not asking you to submit your final paper this week. What I'm doing is I'm posting the actual rubrics for the paper so you can see exactly what it is that you're going to be doing for your paper. And you can even kind of start planning if you even want to brainstorm, or if you want to kind of start taking down notes and start kind of planning how you want to structure your paper for next week. I'm giving you basically the tools and the information this week to go ahead and start planning ahead for that. And when you do your pre-writing activity, it's going to be really beneficial for you when you're writing your paper next week to complete the pre-writing activity, and keep it in mind, because I'm going to show you here in a second, there's a section of the pre-writing activity that's going to be particularly valuable to you that you can actually really use in order to take some of that information and put it into your paper. So we're kind of building you up to where you're doing some of the legwork this week, and then it's hopefully going to make it easier for you to actually put your paper together next week when you're doing your final. So if you click here on instructions for final paper, it's just a reference for you. You're not turning in your final paper this week. It's just so you can see what it is that you're going to be writing about. Please read this thoroughly. Read through it and make sure you understand what it is that you need to be writing about and what the requirements are. It's not a complicated paper. I'm not asking you to write a 5-page paper or anything like that. More than likely, most of you, your paper will probably come out to be about 2 pages. So basically, I tell you here what it is that you're going to be writing about and what you need to be thinking about as you're getting ready to write your paper. And then I tell you basically how the flow of the paper needs to go. You need to have 5 paragraphs. Each of your paragraphs need to have at least 5 sentences. So you're looking at a 5-paragraph essay that's not, that's not super huge, but you need to have at least 5 sentences. You can write more than that if you want, but this is the minimum that you need to try to achieve when you're writing your paper next week. And then I do also put on here, please, when you do start writing your final paper, make sure when you get done with it, if you do a rough draft or anything like that, proofread your paper. Proofread it, try to catch any of the grammar errors, any of the punctuation errors, anything like that. If you have a family member or a friend that you feel like is really good at, writing papers or just editing or anything like that, and they're willing to proofread your paper for you, because a lot of times somebody coming into, reading your essay or something like that, and they're kind of an outside person that's reading it, they're going to catch a lot of little small mistakes, or maybe if like a sentence doesn't make sense or something like that, they'll be able to help you out and proofread it. And at least, probably at least catch a few errors, so that way you're able to correct them before you submit your paper next week. And I put on here that I'm asking you to proofread your paper and make sure that you're submitting your best work, because this will be one assignment that I am going to mark out for errors if you do have any grammar errors or if you have any punctuation errors. Mostly simple ones. I'm not an English teacher, so I'm not going to completely destroy your paper, but I'm going to be looking for very simple punctuation and grammar errors that if you make them in your paper, you're going to get points taken off for it. So just be aware of that. And right here, I just put a section for potential deductions. So you kind of know basically exactly how points might be deducted from your paper if you do not meet the requirements of the paper. So basically your paper has to consist of 5 paragraphs with 5 sentences per paper. And potentially if you don't reach that, you could lose 10 points on your paper. That's my kids, and they're knocking on the door. I'm working. No, Gavin, I'm working. Gavin. No. So there's life right there. Anyway, I put on here that you could potentially lose 10 points if you don't have at least the bare minimum of the 5 paragraphs with 5 sentences. For simple grammar punctuation errors, I put on there basically every time I catch a simple grammar or punctuation error, I'm going to take half point off. So just be expecting that. So make sure you're proofreading your paper and catching those little mistakes. I put on here that you need to have at least 3 reliable resources. And I tell you to go back to when you did the career research activity in week 4, because you should have already gotten a few resources that are based off of the career that you were wanting to look at. So you potentially already have 3 resources that you found online, or whether it be in a book or anything like that, but you potentially already have this. So make sure you go back and look at your career research activity you did in week 4, because you may already have some resources. And you need to have a reference section at the end of your paper listing the resources. Try to do your reference section in APA format. If you don't know how to do APA format, down here I have a link for that APA tip sheet. It shows you how to do references, whether you get your resources out of like an online resource, a book, a magazine, an article, anything like that. It'll show you how to properly reference your resources at the end in your reference section. So that is a potential area where you could potentially lose 10 points if you're not going to use any resources and you're going to write a paper without using any resources to back up any of the information that you're talking about. And then another potential 10 points loss is if you do not do in-text citations. You need to do in-text citations, especially if you are using resources as a reference in your paper, because if you use information that you got from a resource and you're not citing that in your paper, you're basically plagiarizing. And that's a big no-no for college. So you need to make sure you're doing in-text citations. And this link will also, at the very end of it, it's going to show you how to reference your reference page first, but if you keep scrolling down on the APA tip sheet, it's going to actually show you also kind of a quick way how you would properly do in-text citations. So that way you're at least giving credit to wherever you got your information from, whatever resources you used. So make sure that you are using in-text citations for any information that you're taking from any of your resources and putting in your paper to back up anything that you're talking about in your paper. And then one important thing is how we're kind of tying everything together about the career path that you're potentially going into, what you're interested in, is that you need to find a way specifically to tie in 2 major concepts from this class that had an impact on you, and discuss how these concepts will help you be successful in working towards your goal to enter your career field or your potential career field, or one that you might be interested in, and be prepared to discuss in detail, even using information from the readings from the past weeks or some of the activities that you did. You need to find and think about 2 major concepts that had an impact, whether it changed your perception on how you could potentially be more successful and actually reach your goals. You need to find a way to discuss that in your paper, and it's up to you how you want to do that, but you do need to specifically tell me 2 concepts that you remember had an impact on you from the class that you're going to incorporate into your paper somehow. And so you need to make it clear, and I know that it's something that you learned from class somehow in your paper, and it's up to you how you want to do it, but that's a potential area that you could lose points if you don't tie in 2 major concepts from this class and use that in your paper. So this is just basically the rubrics for your paper. It's not super complicated. And it's kind of a beneficial way to reflect on the career path that you're going on and tying in some of the concepts from this class to basically say how you're going to get to that point, how you're going to use concepts from this class to get to that point, and what it is that you learn specifically about this career path that you want to go on through some of the research that you've done in other assignments on that career path. So this is just for your reference this week. You're not turning in your final paper this week. It's mainly just for you to have a reference so that way you're prepared and you kind of know ahead of time what it is you're going to be writing about. So off of that, you will have your pre-writing activity for this week. And this one is basically just answering questions, but it's something that it did not load. Just one second. There we go. It's answering questions, but it's questions that potentially are going to help you basically gather information that you can use on your paper. So you're just going to want to read through this, make sure you read the directions, and then you're basically answering the points. And I put on here basically how many points each one of these is worth. So if you answer this question in full, you're going to earn 2 points for it. The total points for the assignment is 20 points. But if you skip one of these questions, that's how many points you'll lose on that question, etc. So just go through that and answer these questions. Try to be thorough, try to be specific, because it's all information that you're basically putting together that you could potentially take some of this information that you're working on this week and be able to use it on your paper next week. And you've already done some of the legwork by doing this pre-writing exercise. And it should be helpful to you next week because you can take some of this information and basically incorporate it right into your paper. And you will be submitting this. You can do the text entry box if you want to copy this and then just answer the questions as you go, or if you want to do it in a Microsoft Word document, that is fine as well. So that is your pre-writing activity to kind of prepare you for your final paper next week. And then you just have one other activity, which you should have already started, because if you remember back in week 2, I asked you to get your blank degree sheet so you could map out basically the rest of your degree program, classes that you're going to take, and kind of plan out ahead of time. So if you click on the activity My Map, and you should already have your degree sheet from earlier in the semester when I asked you to get that as one of your assignments. You're basically going to follow the directions here. So that way you're filling out your degree sheet properly. You will be filling it out. If you've already taken certain semesters and you've already taken classes, you can basically indicate what semester it was, what classes you took, all the way up to the point that you're at now. And then you're basically planning out your future classes, what you have left to take, and how, basically a plan of how you're going to take those classes. And you need to base it off of what your work schedule is, things like that. If you're only able to handle 3 classes a semester, then you need to take that into account and basically map out what your degree plan is going to look like with the classes that you have left to take. So, do your best on that. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, and all classes won't necessarily be offered in the perfect order that you want them in, but you're basically giving yourself a map that you can even take that degree sheet later on. And as you're planning out your next semesters coming up, you can look at even the degree sheet that you've already planned out for this exercise, and it could be helpful to you to kind of know what path you want to go on and potentially what classes. And you do need to kind of take into account whether classes you're planning coming up have prerequisites, because if they do, then you need to try to plan the prerequisites before you do certain classes. So just be aware of that and kind of map it out. So you should already have your blank degree sheet and go ahead and fill it out is basically what you're doing. So just follow the directions here. Basically, you can do it in a text entry box. You don't necessarily have to upload your degree sheet again. You just take that information of the structure that your degree sheet is doing, and you can basically type it out in a text entry box, or you can put it into a Microsoft document. But basically, you want to make it very clear what semester it is you're indicating, what classes you're going to take, and break up your semesters and type it all out that way so I can clearly see how you're mapping out the rest of your degree plan. And that is that. Then you'll submit it, whether you're uploading a Microsoft Word document or if you're doing the text entry box. And that is the last assignment for this week. So I'm just going to reiterate one more time. You are not turning in your final paper this week. So I'm just giving you, before you do your pre-writing activity, I'm just giving you the rubrics for the paper for next week so you're prepared for it. But you are not turning in your paper this week. You're just turning in this pre-writing activity. So those are your 4 assignments that you have for the week. If you have any questions this week, let me know. If you're going through the rubrics for the paper and you have any questions or if something doesn't make sense to you, it's even better probably to just go ahead and email me this week and try to ask your questions now so you have even more time to prepare for your paper so you're not doing it at the last minute next week. Because you're only going to have 4 days basically to turn the paper in, because the folder for week 8 next week is not going to open until Monday, which I believe is the 19th. And then you have to have your paper turned in by Thursday, the 23rd, because that's when all the finals for our particular class have to be completed. So that's because it's only going to give me about 4 days to get all of your papers graded. So that way I can get them graded, get them back to you, and then I'll be able to submit final grades the week after that. So just be aware of those dates, that you're only going to be able to have this final paper activity, or assignment folder basically open. It's not going to be open until Monday on the 19th, and you're only going to have that 4-day period to get it turned in. Does not mean you can't start working on your paper now. You certainly can. You're just not going to be able to submit it until finals week during that 4-day period that this folder will be open. So just be aware of that. So yep, just shoot any questions my way if you have any. And that is it for this week. So I will see you all next week. It'll be a very, very short little lecture video next week. And then we're pretty much done. So, all right, I'll see you guys next week.